Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Guys, I want to start this off by telling you we got a doozy of an episode for you.
It's going to be so good.
I have no idea what's going to happen. Before I did, now I don't. Honestly, today's episode, I'm probably going to have to be really present in the episode to see where it goes.
Do you want to say what the episode's about?
Which is ironic because this episode's about being present. Being present's a difficult one.
It's hard.
Yes.
It's hard to be present, but it's glorious.
Yeah. I learned, like, people might not know what that means to even be present. Maybe we'll define it at some point. I don't know how you want to take this podcast. I'm just trying to be present with it right now. We got into another one of our classic, like, confusions before the podcast.
Confusions.
I didn't know how to say that. Like, is it a disagreement? Is it a spat? Is it us just trying to get things together? I don't know.
Yeah, we had some feelings. I had some feelings come up.
Yeah.
And then I got really locked up because of those feelings. I went into freeze.
Yeah.
We've talked about our nervous system a lot. And it has really helped me to understand what's happening the more I've learned my body sensations and what's going on. So I was able to recognize, like, I had a ton of energy in my chest and my stomach. And I also felt like locked in.
Mm-hmm.
And then had to figure out what to do with that instead of breathing it at you like a ball of fire, which is what I've done in the past to get out of uncomfortable emotions.
Ball of fire. Dragon Ball Z.
So in the past, I would feel that buildup of anxiety, of energy, of self-protection energy, and then I would just spew it at you.
Yeah.
And now what I've started to recognize is that buildup often means that I'm not having a voice or I'm not having boundaries about something.
Yeah.
And so I need to figure out what it is that is going on inside of me and then try to say it, not spray it.
That's a good way to put it.
Try to not destroy you, because anger is a response to me that is trying to set a boundary.
Uh-huh.
So when I can feel no. And so when I try to feel that energy, and so then I knew that I was having flashbacks. What happened is I walked in and you were not reacting poorly, but something you did reminded me of how you used to react for a long time in our marriage. And so then my mind was like, this is not a level 10 because you did not have a huge reaction, but my body instantly went back into panic.
Yeah. And I do appreciate you wanting to be with yourself enough to manage it, because it wasn't a ball of fire. I definitely got like some flames here and there thrown my direction, but not a ball.
I think for how big of a reaction I was having on the inside, my external.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. You did a really good job. It wasn't nothing, but it was like, oh, okay, she's managing herself really well inside of this. I don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to participate with her. I am trying my best.
And you tried really hard, and it was very helpful.
Yeah, and I watch you continue to want to participate in the process and not exit out of it. Mm-hmm. So like,
but you know what the problem was? Is I had such an agenda to get to record the podcast. Mm-hmm. That I just kept trying to shove what was happening to the side and then move forward. And the more I pushed against the emotions happening inside of me, the more they fought back. And they were like, no, you can't silence me. And so I kept trying to shove them aside so we could record. And I had an agenda. And you were literally, I think this is one of the pivot moments. There were several. You did a good job.
Oh, go ahead. Tell the audience what I did.
But there was one moment where you said, we're recording a podcast about getting present. Is there something that you need to get present with? Uh-huh. And I didn't want to bring up the flashbacks that were coming up for me, I didn't want to open up a can.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get to my agenda of what I needed to get done, which was this podcast. And so when you're like, do we just need to be present? It actually, then we had a conversation that was much shorter than the entire time I was trying to just get to the podcast.
By about 2 hours.
100% would have been so much faster. Yeah. So that is our own personal testimony about why getting present is important. And do you want to talk about getting present? And
well, I do want to say this. So you made mention of the agenda. One of the number one things that keeps us out of being present is the agendas that we have inside of our lives.
Oh my gosh.
Because we think that this is the way this day is supposed to go. This is the way my life is supposed to go. This is the way this relationship is supposed to go. We're determined that we want to get something. We have an expectation that we set versus an expectancy. So we get into expectation about our day, our lives, all of that. And then all of a sudden, the things that come into our lives that are actually supposed to be opportunities, invitations, like honestly, it's not fun to get triggered, right? No. It's not fun for you. It's certainly not fun for me. But that trigger moment was an invitation. If there was no agenda, you immediately get to say like, hey, I'm going to put my agenda aside. Justin, I can tell something's happening inside of me. And then it's an invitation for healing potentially, not just healing, but also connection. Yeah. Because all of a sudden you and I have an opportunity to go deeper if I'm willing to, lovingly, kindly, and compassionately engage, which I did.
Pat on my back. I was thinking, I mean, this is probably one of the things that keeps me out of being present the most is having an agenda. I thought about this, like when I'm really busy in my day and I'm like, I'm going to run this errand and this errand and this errand. And then maybe you run into somebody who wants to chat for just 3 minutes while you're running one of your errands. I'll feel the energy of like, I have so much I need to do.
Why are you stealing from me?
And what that is like, I'm not being open to receiving from life. I'm not open to the flow. Yeah. I'm literally saying that the place I'm trying to get to is more important than the life in front of me. And I know that even in like, this is the funniest place that I experience this, but I experience it a lot in counseling where I'll come into a meeting with my counselor and I have all this stuff that I need to talk through. And so my agenda is I want to be able to talk through it. And she will stop me after like 1 minute of sharing and she'll make me try to connect to my body and be present. And I'm like, I don't want to be present. I want to tell you about all this stuff because I need to get there before I can open up and receive. And like a lot of times that's how I've lived my life is like the to-do list trumps everything. Yeah. Or no to-do list at all and float through life. And so learning how to hold the two hands of like, no, I do have an agenda for the day because I want to be productive. And how do I embrace flexibility in the moments that present themselves as invitations to connections, to deeper conversations, invitations to care about someone. I mean, I get very task oriented. So even in working, I can be so hooked on the agenda that I have to remind myself to be nice to people. But that's part of being present is noticing the actual moment you're in.
Yeah, that's really good because I think people would like to probably wonder like, what does it mean that to be present and being with this moment, being aware of the feelings that I'm having, being aware of the impact that I'm having on others, the impact they're having on me, being aware of what this moment is about. Yeah. Like, is this moment about the task or is it about the journey through the task that might be happening right here? And there's nothing wrong with saying like, we have to record this podcast. It's part of our lives. Totally. But there's something that happens in the journey where we talk about invitations, where there's an invitation that's extended and it may look different than what we expected, but we can still accomplish the podcast while also being present with the thing that's presented to us in the middle of it. Yeah. I want to talk about this really quick. I was thinking of Bob Goff. For those of you who haven't listened to Bob Goff, like read one of his books, you have to get his books.
Love
Does, Everybody Always, and I think
something about whimsy. Maybe.
But we went to a Bob Goff event with Bob, And, you know, it's like Bob Goff is a guy that when he wrote his book, he put his cell phone number in the back of the book. And this is a man who is a very successful lawyer, and he works with world leaders. And all, like everything about his life says you are an interruption. And, and he views the interruptions as invitations.
As the adventure of life.
As the whimsy. And he's sitting there going like, here's where life actually happens, is when my agenda goes out the window and something that I wasn't planning for decides to happen. And for a lot of us, we're thinking, okay, I'm okay if something seemingly good happens. Like somebody interrupts my day and says, here's $1 million. You won the lottery. Yeah.
I don't have an agenda. Yeah.
I'll take it. But like for Bob, some of the things that interrupted his life was like having his property burned down in Southern California, and him being like, this interruption's an invitation.
Right. What is the adventure that's going to come out of this?
Yes. And being present with that and being like, I don't need to just rebuild it. I need to like be present with what's happening in this process. And he could look at it as that was a total failure and a total loss, or he's just like, I don't know, right now I'm grieving. And right now I'm also like being present with the beautiful miracles that are coming into my life. One
of the things that you're talking about being present is not judging this current moment either. Because like what he didn't, so he'd spent years working on this property and it was his dream, and then it all burned down. And so the concept would be, I'm not going to decide if it was good or bad that it all burned down. I'm not going to decide that it was not worth the process to get here because it all burned down. I'm going to actually hold that the journey, the adventure to get to this point was important for me and the growth that I was on. And then I'm also going to hold that who knows what good can come from this. When we were in the trip with him, we were in Disneyland. Were you going to tell this story?
Oh, you can jump into part of it. I think it's a good story to talk about.
We were in Disneyland and he was talking to several of us on Tom Sawyer Island, which is where he loves to work. And the Disney people came and got mad at him, which he knows the rules of Disney. He's a lawyer and he goes to Disney all the time. He knows all the laws of Disney. They're like, you're not allowed to be talking to people here, blah, blah, blah. And so, but he decided, he's like, I could. Oh,
well, they also demanded that he show a ticket.
Yeah, that's true. They said, show us your ticket. And he could have because he had a ticket, but he didn't want to. He felt like he liked his autonomy. He didn't want to have to do that. So they escorted him out of the park. So
they Disney arrested him in front of his entire group of people. It interrupts an entire conversation that's being had.
At a conference that he's hosting.
Yep. And he's fully being present with being escorted away. He's not freaking out. He's not making major demands. He's like, okay.
Yeah. And then when he came back the next day, he's like, you know what? I got that the guy who arrested me phone number. We're going to be friends now. And he's like, I'm going to send him one of my books. And I can't wait to see what kind of relationship I get from the guy who took me to Disney prison.
Yep. And he could have.
Because he thought, what is the whimsy of this moment? What is the adventure of this moment? He was being present, not getting lost in this ruined what I thought I needed for today. And so much of us not being present is us believing we know what we need in every moment, and almost our resistance to life.
Yeah.
Because life is going, like, we can either see challenge as the adventure. Like, we're not made to live comfortable lives. We're made to rise to challenge. That's the joy. That's the triumph of life, is what we face. And so I think he's really learned how to be present in the individual moments instead of having an agenda of what good would be and a judgment of this is what being a good leader. Like, what if for our group, the best thing, like that's one of the most memorable parts of the conferences is how he handled that situation.
Yep.
And you could have said like, yeah, but that ruined the conference, or you could be like, or that made it for people.
Yes, absolutely. I think being present like that is really scary for people. You know, like Bob has stories of like a friend of his that had cancer, and it's a beautiful story of how he participated in that journey, but he easily could have got lost in his work. You know, being big lawyer Bob, who's well known and stuff, but he continued to stay present with the person in front of him. And a lot of us, we want to escape out of these moments. And for him, he ended up making some really beautiful moments before his friend passes away, right? But we want to just avoid. So our thing is like, I want to avoid the life that's right in front of me. I want to avoid the discomfort. I want to avoid the losses. I want to avoid the difficulties. I want to avoid,
Yeah, because we believe like a huge part of culture has swung to, we are made for comfort and we are made for pleasure and we're made to satisfy our desires fast. Instead of, we are made for challenge, we are made for growth, we're made for adventure. And when we make our world small, when we think we're made to feel good, and we make our world big when we recognize that we often get the biggest dopamine hits, the biggest reward, the biggest feel good feelings when we face hard things and get the gift out of them. I think about, I wanted to, when my uncle called me and told me he was dying of cancer, I did not want to go. Like I had had so many situations with my mom in my life. I've saved her life several times. And then when she lost her mind, it devastated me. And so I felt all these feelings of like, I don't want the grief of, I don't want to have to be around somebody that I love that is deteriorating. Like, I don't want to do that. And I could feel this, like, the pain of, I want to avoid being with somebody in their pain because of how it will affect me. I want to escape. I don't want to think about that you're dying. I don't want to see it. I don't want to feel it. And for me, one of the reasons that I overcame it was thinking about Jesus on the cross. And it was like, well, he didn't avoid pain. So I could probably not avoid pain. But my point is, I was just this week saying how that ended up being one of the most significant parts of last year, was this beautiful time with my uncle and his kids and his wife. And it was so healing to me. And it was so beautiful and life-giving. And probably one of it was hard, but it was sacred. And it was something I would never, ever take back. And I think it took the choice to not escape being present.
Well, and I want to say, watching you go up to your uncle dying, the month or two, somewhere in that space, there was a lot of questioning inside of you whether or not you were going to go out. And I watched you battling the avoidance inside of you. At least I perceived avoidance. Like, absolutely. She is in this massive tug of war and she is trying to escape out of being present with this. But then you were pushing in to be present. And I watched the back and forth. And I say that to be like, it's normal when we're facing things that feel so overwhelming and so much bigger than us to have a really big tug of war inside of us. But again, to what you're saying, I watched you finally say, yeah, I'm going to choose this. And we watched miraculousness happen. Like you saw miracles happen, even though the miracle wasn't of your uncle healing. You watched one miracle after another of love being exchanged and connections happening because you're willing to be present in the pain and the grief and the loss and the suffering. And it's a very impactful story.
Yeah. Guess what we just did?
What did we just do, Abby?
We created the connection cure. And I think this is the thing that I'm most excited that we've ever created for people, because it is all of the years of courses that we've made, making it available in one monthly healing membership where you get to be connected to people who are going on the same journey as you, while getting access to all of the things that we have made: Relationship Glue, Reclaiming You, the Compassion Project,
the Father Series, Living Fully Alive, the Regulation Library.
Yes, we have so many things that we've created over the years. We've had over 10,000 people do our courses. We've met with over 4,000 individual clients. And now we have brought all of it together so that you could have access to all of it for less than one counseling session a month.
Yep. And what's really cool is that monthly we have connection live connection calls where people get together and have those connection moments, talk about what they're going through, how they're healing in their process. And that's been one of the number one things that people have said is so incredible about doing our courses is the community that they create and the healing that takes place inside of that community. I mean, we've had people find their spouses,
find their best friends, find their community, because finally there's people where they realize I'm not alone and I'm allowed to be loved right now in the messiness of my life before everything is fixed, before everything is perfect. You can belong before you have transformed. You can be loved before you're fixed in this community. And it is really rich and beautiful and healing. We're meant to heal with each other. And the whole point of why we made this is so that people could have a holistic healing pathway. We do so much with connecting to your body and actually learning how to move with your body through emotions so that things don't get buried alive in your body. The body keeps the score. We want to zero that score out. And then we have heart connection stuff where you're actually feeling empathy for yourself and others, where you're actually connecting to your own story and you're actually having time to not just learn logically about why you do what you do, but actually have new feelings towards yourself. And then we have all of the logic, the neuroscience, all of the reasons why your body and your brain do what they do so you can actually understand yourself for the first time and start to have kindness towards why your body is made to react the way it is so that you can heal. It's body, heart, and mind all together in a way that is really, really beautiful.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a really cool membership because you get to stay as long as you want or as short as you want inside of it. You're not trapped inside of it, but you have access to an incredible community and great information. And so that is coming soon. You can go to Justin and Abby, that's abi.com, and you can get on our mailing list there, and we'll let you be the first to know when we release that. But this is something we've been planning for a while now, and I'm glad we're getting to do it.
It's about to come out. Yeah, I think that being present is a different way to live, but it requires that we're not numbing out.
Yeah.
And it requires that we actually are facing challenging feelings.
And I want to say this too, like using your uncle's situation as an example, you could have easily gone there and not been present. You could have.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of times we'll take our body into a location,
but not our emotions or our heart. You have,
my body's here, but I am somewhere else.
Yeah.
And we can escape. And you could have easily been on his phone scrolling the entire time. You could have been exiting out of the moment, making phone calls to friends, talking about other stuff. You could have got lost on a computer trying to work and do work things, but you were there with each individual. And again, there's beautiful fruit that comes out of that, but it comes at the cost of us being willing to face our fears.
Yes.
Right?
Do you want to talk about you learning to be present?
Yeah.
Because I would say this is one of the things that I would have said I was naturally better at when we got married, being present. Then I went through trauma and then I was much worse at it than you. But you started off, it felt like very unpresent in a lot of ways. You just had a strong agenda. Your agenda cut off your ability to be present, and your fears did. And I have seen you fight through the years to transform kind of your worldview on what is the goal to be human. And one of the things that you've added to it is being present. And I think you're incredible at it, and you've grown so much.
Well, thank you.
Now I think you're one of the best people at it.
I appreciate that. It's definitely an art form I've had to grow in. Well, first off, I want to say this. In my household, there was a lot of violent behavior. And it was very easy for me at a young age to learn how to not be present.
Yes.
So I learned to escape my body by jumping into my brain, going into some fantasy world, thinking about anything. It was like, I don't even know how to explain it, but it felt like I exited my entire being. Yeah. As it happened. I think that anyone who's been part of those types of situations goes, I get it. I totally jump out of my body and go elsewhere. It makes sense. So for me, it was at a young age exiting my body. And then as I got older, where I could participate in work for my dad and stuff like that, then I started just like, I will be very active. And as long as I can keep myself active, I don't have to go back to the war-torn home that I'm experiencing as mom and dad are inside of battles and stuff like that. I can just like find activities to do outside of the space. So that kind of set the tone for how I was doing life, was just like keep on a hamster wheel no matter what.
Yes.
And slowing down, like I had an offense to the idea of slowing down.
Absolutely.
So the idea is like, if you're not doing something, you're worthless.
Yeah.
But that was just a way to keep myself detached from myself, dissociated, right? So in our first year of marriage, all of a sudden, and we've told this way long ago, this story, but my whole life came to a complete stop in our first year as I quit work and we started traveling for 6 months around the US. And then we spent another 6 months just sitting in Burbank, California.
We weren't just sitting, but yeah.
Well, what I mean is like we weren't working. So we were spending time together, but all of a sudden, the biggest insecurities on the face of the planet started surfacing. Pains that I didn't know I had started just exploding out of me because I was like, I don't know what this is. What's going on inside of me? I had been able to keep on a treadmill for so long. I didn't even know I had emotions.
Yeah.
And I'll say this too.
You didn't know you had any feelings.
Yeah. I denied them. Like I knew there were feelings. I guess I'll say this. I knew there were feelings, but just enough to tell them to go away.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when I had clients come into my office in life consulting, they would say to me, I don't feel anything. I don't have any bad emotions. And I'm like, ooh, they're in deep dissociation and they are running and they haven't had enough time to slow down. And I would watch them get extremely anxious when I would get quiet and make us just sit.
Right.
Because all of a sudden...
Well, having to be present can be terrifying.
It is, because all of a sudden these things that we can't articulate start bubbling to the surface. And that's what happened as you and I were on our 1-year sabbatical.
Yeah.
All of a sudden. And one of the things that you said to me, which I will credit to you,
Aww.
is you're like, what if being productive was like actually connecting to yourself and sharing moments with me?
Yeah.
And I was like, I can play this game. And so I started being like, all right, what does that mean to be present with myself and be productive in this moment? And I allowed myself to start becoming an avid learner of my own heart and an avid learner of your heart as well.
Yeah.
There was a couple different products that this ended up producing. One was a deep connection between each other.
Yeah.
But also a bunch of unresolved pain that I was now having to face and I didn't know what to do with it. Right. And I was having to actually start the process of working through all of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you started grieving out a lot of the things that you had been through.
I had lived in an immense amount of denial about my childhood, and I couldn't access the reality of that until I stopped long enough to say, what is the truth of my story? And I think a lot of people, like when we lack being present, we're actually not connected to our story. And when we're not connected to our story, we're not connected to compassion. Because if you can't understand and see your story, then you don't have a capacity to have compassion for something you don't understand.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, it was vital that I could start articulating my story to you, to the development of love inside of my life. And then all of a sudden I could go, oh, that story just humanized Justin. Like I all of a sudden was like, oh, I've been through a lot. And then all of a sudden I could grieve it. It gave me being present, gave me a road to being able to repair what was happening inside of me through a healthy sense of grief.
Right.
And recognition. So yeah, is that what you're asking?
Yeah. I think the process of being present, to me, even that was letting go of your agenda. So your agenda back then was we need to make money. We need to get ahead in our careers. And I think those are good things. We've spent years doing that. So this is not an either or, but being present is, are there moments in my life that I can actually let go of my agenda to be present with what is happening instead. And you learned a lot to let go of that agenda and switch into being present. And I think connected to yourself and your story means you can connect to other people in their stories as well. And that's why being present is so fulfilling. I found that often the hits of endorphins we get are from true connection points. When I have a conversation with you where I see you in a new way, or you see me in a new way, or we discuss something and we kind of discover something about ourselves, those moments of connection, or we sing at the top of our lungs, or we have a dance party, those moments of connection are kind of the magic of life. They're the fuel of life, the fun of life. They are the joy that it powers us. And so the more we have genuine connection with ourselves and each other, the less we need addictive behaviors to get those dopamine hits. But it takes actually being able to be present and with ourselves. And I was thinking kind of about this idea of having an agenda versus being present. And something you said earlier was making me think this happens a lot in conversations where somebody won't be like, what is this moment about? What's happening between us? Somebody will just have an agenda like, I need to share all of my trauma with you. Or my agenda is to preach at you. Or my agenda is to get you to see things the way that I want them to be seen. And
I want to fix you.
Or I want to fix you. There's so many agendas that we can have even in a conversation where we try to control and aim things instead of actually looking for the invitation of, if I was just present with what's happening, is there something beautiful here?
One of the things that I watched was Paul Young, who's been in our life forever, 16 years now. And I watched from the get-go when we spent time with him, everything was about him being fully present in the moment with us. And his question that he asked from the get-go, and he told me this, he said, Justin, when I'm with you, I'm not asking the question, how can I fix him?
Yeah.
Or how can I change Justin?
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'm always asking the question, how can I love him really well right now in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
And what that requires is to be really present,
mm-hmm.
aware of the need, aware of the exchange that's taking place. And that was something that settled into me very deeply. I had already for about 5 years been on a journey of like, all I want to know is how to love really well. Like, love is the one thing that I want to be known for inside of my life. It's something that I'm still ever growing in, right? But when he said that, I was like, oh, that's an aspect of love. Like, he wants to be so present in this moment that he's aware of a need, because when he's asking, how can I love this person well, is really asking, what is the need? What's going on inside of them? How can I meet them in the middle of where they're at right now? How can I give of myself? And I watched as Paul, like, unknowingly gave things that impacted my heart. Like, he didn't know me well enough to know it would impact my heart. I didn't even know myself well enough that it would impact my heart. But he did things like, he wrote a song and was like, I wrote a song. Can I sing this song for you? And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You want to spend time with me and just share this with me?
Yeah.
You know? And then he sat down and was like, we're going to go to my favorite restaurant that I only take my sons to. I want to take you here and you can ask me any questions you want. You have my full attention. And I'm like, I just needed someone that wants to give me their full attention and I can ask some questions, you know, and I'm like, I didn't realize this was in me. I didn't tell him that, but he was present enough to read my heart and say, this is what I believe loving him well looks like in this moment.
Yeah. And then look at, in this moment today, you did that. You passed that on to me, where you decided to love me more than the agenda of getting to the podcast. And that is something that can grow. And I was thinking about, love is in the present, you know?
Yeah. It's
That's how you encounter love, is someone else in that moment that is present with you. I mean, you can encounter it, I guess, from writing or actions as well, but a lot of love is experienced in the present. Or even if they're not present with you, you're experiencing something they gave you in this present moment as love.
Yeah.
And so we miss out on a lot of love and joy when we miss out on being present. I was thinking for me,
I want to add to that. That was a really great point, and I don't want to move off of it, because so often I would have people do loving actions for me. So let me back up. When I look at my past, initially I would say I didn't see any places that I was loved. And as I grew in the process of being present, I realized there was a lot of people that were really doing things to try and love me, but I wasn't present with those moments. So I was passing over them. And there wasn't a place for their love to land inside of me because I couldn't be with me. So it felt too scary. It felt too terrible to be inside of me. And so as I've evolved in my journey of being present, when someone gives me a compliment or gives me time or whatever, I am so aware in the moment, oh, this person is taking extra time with me. Oh, this person is going out of their way to express the ways that I've impacted them, and they're complimenting me for something. I'm not going to avoid this and just brush it off and let it fly over the top of my head. I sit down and go, I want to feel exactly what they're handing over to me right now in this moment. And it's changed the way that I live my life, in the fact that my confidence has been radically built up because I've been able to absorb the love that's not only currently available, but I've been able to go back into my past and get present with something that was in my history.
Yeah. Do you feel unlovable? Maybe it's because you haven't been noticing the ways that people want to love you and are trying to love you. And I've watched you literally do that. Somebody will give you a gift, or somebody will write you a card, or somebody will say something, and you'll literally slow down instead of just zooming through it, which I think, again, is our agenda to just keep moving. You'll slow down, and sometimes you'll narrate it out loud. Sometimes you'll just narrate it in your head, where you'll be like, wow, I can tell that you put a lot of heart into this and that you really want to love me. Thank you so much. That feels really good to know that somebody wants to love me.
There'll be things that people will do that's not even in my love language. And I will stop, and I could easily pass over it when it's not my main love language. Be like, oh, that's nice. Thanks. But I'm like, this person deliberately was trying to find a way to express value for me. I am going to take in the reality of that.
Yeah.
Even if I don't understand this love language they're acting out of.
Even if this thing does not mean love to me at all.
The fact that they participated in thinking of me, spending their time on this, their energy to do this, I'm going to absorb that.
Is that how you feel about all my Christmas presents?
No, I feel very loved by those.
I'm kidding. That was
your cards that you write me half the time, though. I kid.
Okay, I kid. I was thinking about, so when I got trauma, I went through a bunch of circumstances, and I remember I've talked about it a lot on this podcast. That was a horrible intro to new listeners. I went through about 20 very horrible situations back to back to back, and it sent me into PTSD. And I remember on one of those trips, I was staying with Pizzi. She's my best friend. And she was like, I'm really worried about you, because she could see that I was completely out of my body. She was like, you are just like, you're doing all these things. And I had to be busy because I was at that point I'd just been put in charge of my mom's life. I was her legal guardian and conservator at that point, and was having to figure out her care because she needed full-time care. And it was heavy and lots of details and it was chaotic. And so I was like, there's just a lot of things I have to do. And so I just exited out of my body to get it all done. And the problem is that then the idea of coming back to being present felt really scary, because basically whatever we're suppressing or avoiding, we feel like if we're present, then we won't be able to avoid all those feelings anymore. And they'll come rushing back, and they'll overwhelm and overtake us. And so I had to go into counseling to actually learn how to come back into being present. And this has given me a lot of compassion for why Americans struggle with being present so much.
Yeah.
Because if you have pain, you don't want to feel it. And then we have a culture that has made it trendy to not be present. Scrolling is not being present. And I know that we're going to sound like old people when I say this, but we used to have to talk with cashiers or talk with the people in the grocery line because we weren't just checked out on our phones any free time that we had. There was a demand that we be present that we had when we got cell phones that are capable the way that ours are now for, I think, like the last 10 to 15 years. It has created a culture where it's common to be disconnected from the moment. Yeah. And we think that it's safe. And here's the crazy thing. When I feel a lot of feelings on the inside, I want to avoid my feelings. So I'll start scrolling. But scrolling actually creates a lot of feelings. They're just different kinds. And so then you want to keep scrolling because you want to keep avoiding feelings, even though you're shoving more feelings in. And so you have to like disrupt the cycle. And for me, disrupting the cycle started off with like finding a few pleasure moments. Like, what is a moment that I can just notice things feel good enough to start to be more present? And I didn't demand that I be fully present because I knew I have so many feelings. I've had to ease my way into being present longer. Like, oh, now I'm going to read this book because that's one step more present than scrolling online. And I was present in that conversation for like 30 minutes. Wow. That was a big deal. Now I'm going to go be by myself or go check out because that cost me a lot to be present for 30 minutes. And so I think it's important to actually have realistic expectations if you're not present to take baby steps to become more present.
Yeah, I actually love that you brought that up because I think that trying to become 100% fully present all at once when you don't have a lifestyle of doing it is like
overwhelming.
It's like playing Russian roulette. You're probably going to blow your head off accidentally. Like because the reality is, and this is why a lot of people got scared to coming into life consulting with me, is because there was this idea that there is a giant closet that is stacked to the top, busting at the seams. And their feeling is that if I come to this space, I'm going to have to open that door and then it's all going to come blowing out on me all at once. And one of the things that I used to talk to people about was like, when you go to that closet, we can actually open it up and grab one thing out of it really fast and shut that door.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, good counselors will train you to do that.
Yep.
So that you don't get overwhelmed and so that you don't get shut down by it.
And so part of it was practicing boundaries with being present with yourself. And there's different variations of being present. Like once we learn how to navigate our heart, I might be able to say like, I actually have a whole area of my heart that I have the door closed to that I'm not ready to be present with this part of my life. Maybe this divorce I went through or this loss of a child or this tragedy in my past, like whatever it is, I might not be able to open that door, but I can sure as heck find the boundaries where I can sit down and be present with this moment with you and enjoy the love that you're giving. While going, I don't have to open all this up. But again, that's the fear that people have. If I get present with myself, do I have to face everything all at once? And the answer is no, you don't. In fact, if you're doing it healthfully, you shouldn't do it like that. So for me, even in our first year of marriage, when I was getting present with myself, part of a conversation I had with God was like, God, I feel like this is all going to break me.
Totally.
I am terrified of all this. Excuse me. I am terrified. I am going to die from coughing. I'm terrified of all this. I can't do this all at once. So I said, give me the grace to look at one thing at a time that I am capable of looking at. And I remember just feeling like this peace that would flood me. And like suddenly this next thing to look at, that next thing might take me 5 minutes to look at.
Sure.
That might be the next like couple weeks
months.
or months where I'm like, that's the only thing I tackled is this one area. And it might be acknowledging a part of my childhood that I could acknowledge while enjoying your companionship.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think we were just watching the show Shrinking, And one of the things that one of the counselors gives advice for is he says the mom had died. And so he's talking to the daughter and actually to the dad. And he's like, you need to go every day for 15 minutes, set a timer, listen to the saddest music that you have, grieve hard, cry hard, journal hard, yell hard for 15 minutes. And then when the timer's done, come back out and live again. And there is something that is so powerful about having boundaries on the hard emotions that we have so that we don't get dominated or overwhelmed by them.
Yeah.
No one wants to feel emotions if the emotions are going to drown them.
Yeah.
So we have to actually get like those life preserver wings
Kitty
with
wings.
our kid wings with our emotions so that we can like get in, float around, and then get out of the pool for a little bit.
Well, that brings up a story of a good friend of mine who went through a divorce. And one of the things he said was like, look, I had days where I give myself permission to stay in my bed all day long if I needed to, cry as hard as I needed to cry, be really depressed. And then I didn't have permission to do that the next day.
Yep.
The next day I had to go hang out with people, maybe go watch a movie or go work on something or be attentive to my children.
Yes.
But he was like, it would have absolutely killed me in that season if I decided to face all of my loss that was going on, but I could do it in increments and progressively get myself out of it. And that's why a lot of people are terrified, not only of opening the door and everything falling out, but they're terrified of depression.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I'll get depressed and I'll never bounce back from depression. To me, one aspect of depression in that area is actually not having boundaries with how you're being present with your emotions.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you think about the person that you want to avoid having conversations with the most.
Got him in my head right now.
That was so fast. That person is probably not connected to themselves.
Yes.
Because when people are connected to themselves, they'll share their passion, their joy, their life with you. And that's interesting. That's engaging. That's vibrant. When people are disconnected from themselves, they might be talking about something that is disconnected from who they are. It feels boring or disjointed, or it feels like you're being talked at. But people who are present inside of a moment are much easier to have a conversation with.
Yeah. I was actually going to say a lot of times you might feel talked at. You said that. And a lot of people if you recognize that they talk at you or they talk at people, it's like that talking at, that's someone who's not present with the moment. Yeah. In it. And so, did you have more?
No, I was just going to say, I think that the biggest thing that I would say to grow in presence is pick a few small things to do. So like for me, it would be like, I'm going to be present in this conversation for like 5 minutes, and I'd pick a number that felt doable. And then it'd be like, well, now I've been doing that regularly. I'm going to do it for 10 minutes. And now I'm going to do it I'm going to not let myself scroll today. I'm going to be present. And what happens is when we actively choose to be present, this is why I'm so concerned about society right now. Whenever we avoid things, whenever we avoid life, conflict, relationships, hard things, challenges, whatever we avoid, we are telling ourselves that is too big for you. You can't overcome it. And humans were made for challenges, to rise to the adventure, and we were made to overcome. And so when we keep avoiding our feelings, being present, what we keep doing is we keep avoiding the adventure, which is the reward.
Yeah.
We keep avoiding the glory. The feelings we avoid are actually one of the ways to have a vibrant life, are actually one of the ways to come alive. And part of a triumphant life, a glorious life, is sadness and grief and love and joy and all of the feelings. And so whenever we're avoiding life, ourselves, being present, we are literally creating insecurity inside of ourselves. We're creating less joy and less fulfillment.
Yeah. One of the things as you were sharing that it reminded me of is that a lot of reasons that people are not present with themselves is that they have a sense of insecurity too. Like it doesn't just create insecurity, it also stems from insecurity. So there's a lot of places where it's like, if I don't love myself and I don't think that what I have to say is valuable, I will find myself worried more about what other people think about me
100%.
than being with the moment and being genuine. So we lose that sense of authenticity as we're lost in our heads, overthinking the conversation, both before we get into it, while we're in it, and then after we're in it. We walk away thinking, what were they thinking of me? Did I do this right? Did I do this wrong? And we have all of these like questions that actually end up keeping us out of being like, but what did I just feel inside of it? How did I experience that person? So we don't even experience people across from us, right?
I love what you're bringing up because this is one of the biggest issues that took me out of being present with people is self-hatred.
Yes.
Is me judging every little thing I do to see if it's making them happy or not, seeing if they are responding well or not. And the more I got, they actually say that that kind of introspection always leads to depression.
Yeah.
And so that's probably too certain, but there's a big correlation between that kind of introspection and depression. And so the idea of self-hatred was one of the things that took me out of being present the most. And loving, being kind to ourselves is one of the ways to come back to the present.
Yeah. So for me, I decided I don't belong inside of someone else's head. I don't know. I don't want to know what they're thinking. I don't care what they're thinking in regards to whether or not I'm performing well enough for them inside of it. Do I want to love them well? Yes. Do I care about their judgments that they're holding? No, I'm not going to sit there and do that. And so I had to exit out of people's heads so that I could just enjoy the moment.
Well, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but you had to exit out of people's heads so you could be in your own body more.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to be inside of me, not inside of your head trying to think through what you're thinking about me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know that you're running out of time.
Yeah. I think one thing that I'll add and then we'll wrap up would just be, besides getting out of other people's heads, which is a really big one. Like I'm not going to imagine, I always say, if you're going to live in a made up world, I'm not going to imagine that you think poorly of me. I'm going to try to imagine that you're thinking good of me or about pizza, But, the other thing I do with self-criticism to slow that down to be more present is I will use self-compassion. So I'll say, oh, I see how scared you are. It makes sense that you want to be liked. You've had such your story contains so many pieces where you care about what's going on in other people's worlds. It's so easy for you to jump into other people's heads because of your relationship with your mom, and you learned at a young age to be more in your mom's head than in your body. And then like, oh, I can see that this is a lived habit for you to be in other people's heads more than to be present. And it makes so much sense. I have compassion for why you learned to not be present. And that softness and that tenderness towards myself actually helps me become present again.
Yeah.
One of the fastest ways for me to become present is to narrate what I'm feeling. That's one of the fastest ways. So today, if we would have just started with that, like what is actually going on? It's so much faster. Get self-compassion. Like, oh, I'm going to be tender towards myself. Anytime that I bring the focus back to what is driving me trying to escape myself, then I can normally get back into my own presence.
Yeah. It's really good. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I identify as someone who's not being present, like as Abby just said, she had compassion on herself. It's time to have compassion on yourself and be like, oh, there's probably a reason that I'm not present. There's probably a myriad of reasons that I'm not being present. And if some of these things land for you and you're like, oh, that's me, then actually take time with it and be like, oh yeah, there are places that I have insecurities and I haven't chosen to love myself. Oh yeah, there are some major wounds that I haven't wanted to face and there's probably a good reason for it. And narrate your story, narrate all of that for yourself. And also, to go deeper in the journey of being present with yourself, we have something called the Compassion Project, which is something on that you can find at Justin and Abby, that's abi.com. And the Compassion Project is so great about getting people connected to themselves. Like, oh, I have a story. What's going on in my story? And how do I get present with that story? That's what the Compassion Project's really about. And it's about doing it in a way that actually brings healing through love and care.
The other thing I'll say is, which I love that. It's probably one of our best sellers.
Yeah.
One thing that I will say is the other thing is look for the moments in life that are invitations. Look for the moments when you get a flat tire and you actually have a good conversation with the security guard at the place you got the flat tire at. Look for the moments, because we often get so frustrated when our day is off our agenda. Look for the gifts. Like, what good moment of human interaction could I have here? Or what moment of inspiration could I have because my day went different than I thought it could?
Yeah. Find the whimsy, as Bob would say. Yeah, in the moment.
Okay. Well, I love you. I got to run.
I love you too. Get out of here.
Bye.
Go do your thing. Bye. Bye, everyone.